Hello and welcome back to the fourth episode of Plums and Peaches. This week we have quite a bit to get through as Australia won yet another test at home. India and Afghanistan played 3 matches in one night and much, much more. But anyways, Lucas, to begin, tell us, how's your pre-season been going? Have you been working on your power hitting, watching the SA20?
Of course, I have. I mean, it definitely needs some work. But like I think that question could also be directed to the other member of this podcast. Um, but I think no, definitely working hard. Hopefully, see it down at Southall Net sometimes. That might be
Possibly.
nice. But yeah,
Not exactly classing yet, but we'll take 25% of it to be honest. But before we get on to the international news, something we missed yesterday, or we didn't actually miss it, because the news broke this morning. It would normally be on the Dibbly Dobblers videos, but it just came out. Another player has actually pulled out of the India tour, and this time for personal reasons as well. Big name. Virat Kohli will not be there for the first 2 matches. So from your relatively neutral perspective, being like less English of your 27 nationalities, does Kohli's absence, obviously it's going to make a difference considering how big he is, but how much does it actually make a difference considering the type of pitches we're going to see in the relative struggles he's had there lately?
it's Virat Kohli. I mean, that's all I really have to say. The name says it all. He's just when he's in that Indian team, people really obviously India has some fantastic players, but when you add Virat Kohli in there, it just adds that extra kind of fear factor and X factor as well. You know what you're getting. You're getting an extremely high quality player, one of the best to ever do it, especially in India. And I think, who certainly will be missed with the kind of obviously I know it's it's back in India this series, but with the struggles that the Indian team have had batting wise in the Test format recently, anyways. I definitely feel like they could miss him quite dearly in those 2 Test matches. However, look, it's India. Like they've been more dominant than Australia at home in the last 10 years, which says it all, really. I mean, I don't think we should read too much into how much it will impact. Obviously, like I said, Virat Kohli, the name, the player that he is obviously going to weaken any team that he's not in. But at the end of the day, India is so strong at home. I don't think it will really matter.
Yeah, agreed. One thing I will say on that is, despite ever since obviously India changed their pitches to be, since the ICC Test Championship began, they've changed their pitches to be heavily in their favour, which has slightly affected their batsmen. Kohli particularly hasn't had the returns that he would have liked. Obviously, they're still pretty decent compared to everyone else, but just not his, insane caliber. But similar to what we saw in the South Africa series, when a pitch is slightly difficult, like even the one at Centurion, and even at points during the Cape Town Test where he got like 40 odd, a player of his quality and caliber, even on the most difficult wickets, they might make a 40, a 60, or a 70, which is only really they can do, and you can tell that they're a class apart from everyone else. And sometimes on low scoring games like that, innings like that from top players end up making a difference, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned that knock in South Africa and the fact that his stats haven't necessarily been the best at home recently, but psychologically, having Virat Kohli in your team makes a massive difference. You see him striding out to the crease, you think this could be a long day. This could quite quickly turn, or the game could quite quickly turn into India's favour, and he's just kind of got that aura about him, which he's had, I think, pretty much throughout his career. And I think that it's certainly going to be a big miss for India, but not one that I think we should read too much into.
Fair enough. Well, let's go on to some Test cricket that was completed very quickly, albeit. Australia played the West Indies at home. Australia fielded first in Adelaide with an attack where 4 bowlers had more than 250 wickets each. This is the first time that's ever happened in Test cricket. But needless to say, West Indies were bowled out for 188. Hazelwood and Cummins got 4 each. And then on the same evening, Steve Smith comes out to bat for the first time, as in not comes out to bat, comes out to open for the first time. He's definitely batted a lot before, but he wasn't there for long. Shamar Joseph on Test debut on his first ball nicks him off, caught second or third slip, and then Joseph ends up getting five for in his maiden first ever Test innings. Australia bowled out for 283, which for their home standards is actually not that much. The only real contribution was Travis Head, who's basically got his mandatory 100 at home on home turf, which always happens. But a bit more on Shamar Joseph. He's only played 5 first-class games before this. And it turns out 12 months ago, he was a security guard back in Guyana. And to be a guy from like a logging village in the Amazon rainforest deep in Guyana, to be here at Test level only a couple of years later, it's quite an astonishing rise, isn't it, Lucas?
Yeah, very inspiring. I was really, really impressed. And despite the fact that he's only played, 5 first-class games and with the Test match 6, I think he's bowled in 12 innings. He's already taken 3 fifers. So, I mean, obviously, it's kind of the West Indies. Exactly. It's the kind of West Indies first-class system. So I guess you could say that potentially the standard isn't too high. But, I mean, when he's performing like that, it's quite good, yeah.
Talking about the West Indies first-class system, I know West Indies have like a great history of incredible fast bowlers, but recently their pitches have had a lot of talk about it being very, very spin heavy. So even for Shamar Joseph to get those 3 fifers already, it's quite an achievement on what is often quite slow, dead tracks in the West Indies. They're not the same flat, bouncy ones that, or at least slightly faster ones that Curtly Ambrose and Courtney Walsh used to have. So that's quite an achievement. But I want to ask a bit more, or speak a bit more on fast bowling in general. So Shamar Joseph is obviously another fast bowler who's gone from playing tape ball cricket locally and very, very quickly transitioned to being on a world-class level at hardball cricket. So along the lines of Haris Rauf and Mohammad Amir. But it's a lot rarer to see batsmen rise that quickly, which makes the argument that teams that are financially poorer, they often have better bowling attacks than batting attacks. Because if you think about it, someone can just pick up a ball and bowl at 90 miles an hour, or have massive fingers and turn it 6 feet either way, and they'll be fast tracked to the highest level, because it's really hard to find such quality. But to make quality batters, it's more than just hand-eye. You need a lot of coaching, you need top facilities, you need a lot of game time, and it often, the argument goes, a great bowler can be born, but a great batsman has to be made. So do you think it's a lot harder for poorer nations to find such top quality batters, considering the slightly lesser facilities and coaching and stuff like that that's available to them?
Well, I mean, you mentioned from a financial standpoint, and obviously cricket is quite an elitist sport in that sense. It's the cricket kit isn't free. And like you said, as you said, you can just pick up a cricket ball and bowl. You can't really do that batting wise. And it definitely goes to show that it is easier, or not necessarily easier, but more accomplishable to find these. More likely, more accomplishable to kind of find these exceptional bowling talents, and harder to kind of find the batting talents with the lack of infrastructure in first class systems, and just exposure to cricket in general for kind of grassroots cricket in those kind of poorer countries.
Agreed. One thing on that is, I didn't know about this before, but I read an article once. Phil Salt made his 200s in the West Indies. It turns out Phil Salt was born in Wales but grew up in Barbados. But at a very early age, people realised he had a very good hand-eye ability to just whack the ball really far. So he came to London and managed to get a private school education, a scholarship in one of the schools, and was basically, they turned his talent and nurtured it and coached it into being what he is now, one of the top white ball batters going around. If he had been, or if he had even stayed in Barbados, it would have been a lot harder for him to replicate such a thing. Whereas Shamar Joseph, who, in all fairness to him, to have that commitment to give up your job and just straight up go for it, when it would have been a tough choice for him, but it is slightly different between pace bowlers and batters, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of examples, none more so than, like you said, Phil Salt. I think, obviously, certainly in the last few years, T20 cricket has kind of become the driving force of West Indies cricket. You know, they've won two. I know the last one they won was 8 years ago now, but they have won two ICC T20 World Cups, and the exposure to that especially has been much better than compared to their kind of Red Bull circuit, which is why, in my opinion, although they haven't had the success in terms of results, they have continuously, they've been able to provide fantastic T20 talent and not been able to replicate that so much in the test format, especially from a batting perspective.
Mm-hmm. And to continue with this test match and continue with West Indies batting woes, the Windies came out to bat again, and they were skilled for basically around 100. Hazelwood got his 11th test fifer and made it 9 wickets in the match for him. And then Australia chased a total of 25 with no wickets lost, but kind of because Khawaja had to get retired hurt after Shamar Joseph, the main man, whacked him in the jaw. But it's all good for Khawaja. He's been cleared of any fracture, no injury there. And then after a concussion test, he's been cleared to play the first test match as well. But the player of the match was rightfully given to Josh Hazelwood, who often I feel like he goes under the radar quite a bit. I think he's got the most wickets of any test bowler who hasn't got a 10 for in a game. So tell me, how good has he been over his career? And is he the most underrated bowler in that Aussie attack?
He's definitely the most underrated bowler in that attack. I think the control and just kind of certain consistency that he provides is really unrivaled, I think, within the world of cricket. And I think it is quite easy to go under the radar when you've got the likes of Mitchell Starc, Pat Cummins bowling at the other end. You know, they're obviously, especially now that Cummins is kind of the captain, he's certainly going to be taking more of the plaudits. And obviously Mitchell Starc is just Mitchell Starc. He's left arm quick. We kind of know what he's about. He's the record buyer in the IPL, and he's not played in the IPL for 8 years. So it definitely feels like Josh Hazelwood is probably quite underappreciated, and obviously potentially because he hasn't had that kind of or those bags of fifers or tenfers or whatever it may be. I think that certainly kind of helps him go under or sneak under the radar a little bit and really go unnoticed almost, you know.
I see on your point there about, I feel like the other bowlers kind of naturally stand out a bit more because Mitchell Starc, left arm quick, bowls really fast, can get up to 150, has a big hooping in swinging Yorker. And there's Pat Cummins, who's a skipper. He's got a nice full one. He nibbles it both ways, bowls full. He can bowl it short, back of a length. And obviously there's Nathan Lyon, who whenever they go overseas, he's the main man, ragging it square. But Josh Hazelwood kind of, seems to slip under the radar because he just nags away at that good length all day. And he doesn't really he isn't the most exciting to watch from a neutral point of view. But those who watch cricket really understand how valuable he is holding up one end, or not even holding up one end, just being genuinely threatening consistently throughout an entire game. You very rarely look at a scorecard and say, oh, Josh Hazelwood has had a poor day. It's just almost the standard 2-3 wickets per innings for him, always gets a couple, and then no one really talks about him. But I think it's good that it's about time people realise that he really is special bowler across all 3 formats, in fact.
Yeah, I was going to say he's no kind of slouch in white ball cricket either. He's obviously played in the IPL and been quite successful, actually. I think he was, or certainly in the last couple of years, he's been up at the top of the wicket taking lists. Yeah, like you said, just incredibly consistent, and you're always in the game with that kind of bowling.
Mm-hmm.
And potentially because it's not, I wouldn't say it's not exciting to watch, but it doesn't kind of catch the eye as much as
It's very
a Mitchell Stark big booming in swinger. Exactly. It's not erratic enough, basically.
yeah.
You know. But yeah, look, fantastic bowler. I'm glad, like you said, he's getting credit because he certainly deserved it.
Agreed. We'll hop over the Tasman Sea now. And since we last recorded, Pakistan have now played their remaining 3 T20s against New Zealand. And to absolutely no one's surprise, actually to some people, Pakistan lost the series 4-1. The surprise might be it's only 4-1. Their solitary victory was in the last game where the player had done a slowish wicket at Christchurch and their spinners done all right and helped them defend a low total. But the standout performance in those 3 games came in the third T20I, where Finn Allen smashed a world record 16 sixes on his way to New Zealand's highest ever individual T20 score of 137 from only 62 balls. And Pakistan did not even get close in their chase of 225. But Lucas, tell me, how exciting is Finn Allen to watch, especially when it seems like basically every time I watch him bat, he's literally trying to hit every single ball for 6.
Well, he's completely been given that license from New Zealand, especially since he's been in that international team. I think he's incredibly exciting to watch. He doesn't always come off, but I mean that's kind of his role in the team. Get us away to fast starts, and if you can keep going like you do in that third game, then fantastic. But I mean, he's again. I think he could potentially kind of slip under the radar a little bit. Obviously, every now and then he'll bash one of these big scores, but he always does chip in with a little cameo. He very rarely doesn't contribute in the game. I certainly think that he's very valuable to that New Zealand top order. And when you think of, I wouldn't say lack of stroke makers in that team, but he certainly provides a little bit of a point of difference and a little bit of X factor in that top order.
Yeah. It's basically, when I come to think of it, him and Mitchell's obviously pretty good as well at hitting a long ball, but it's basically him and Phillips that provide most of the power. And I feel like you're quite right in the how you can go underrated, because often he'll come out and hit 25 off 7 or 30 off 11, and it doesn't really stand out because our brains are naturally in tune to looking at 50s and 100s. But honestly, in T20 cricket, a 30 off 11 is more valuable than an 80 off 50 because it's the strike rate there that allows you to just get another bloke in who can do something the same. So he's really, really important to the way New Zealand play, especially with Devon Conway at the other end, who isn't the quickest run scorer. Finn Allen's, even if it's just a 25 off 10 or 25 off 12, is really, really important to his side. But now we'll move on to Pakistan, who, despite Babar Azam's hat-trick of 50s in the first 3 games, the other Azam, Big Azam Khan, he has struggled at international level. He's only made 29 runs in 7 innings, striking at just 90. And with his fitness issues not exactly helping him, do you think Pakistan should invest in what is, quite frankly, he has got unique power hitting ability? But do you think Azam Khan's ship has sailed and his chances have been squandered? Or is there more to come?
It seems like a bit of a recurring theme about Pakistan being sort of nearly team and not really knowing their perfect formula just yet. Look, I'm not too sure how old he is. I think he might actually be just touching 30.
I'm not sure. I can check that out for you.
I mean, that could be completely wrong. But I mean, look, 70 20 international, obviously
25.
He's 25. Okay, fair enough. Fair bit younger than I thought then. But you kind of, at some point, you have to wonder, okay, when is he actually going to kind of step up? I mean, obviously, like I said, seven games isn't that much, but 29 runs in those 7 games isn't the kind of return you'd expect, really. Especially with no, exactly, and it's with the amount of talent that Pakistan kind of have in the ranks, I certainly don't think that you can afford to squander too many more of these chances, like you said. But yeah,
I agree. Seven games isn't a lot, but I don't think he's got that many more games left at international level until I think even if in his next, if he even manages to play another 3-4 games within the next couple of years, I'm sure there will be with the amount of T20 cricket going around. Even if he does one innings where he shows his power hitting ability, which, to be honest, is quite unique in Pakistan, specifically because since really Asif Ali, they haven't had someone at number 6, 7, maybe Iftikhar as well, but Iftikhar is slightly a different player. They haven't really had someone who just had the ability to take the game away. And if Azam Khan can get it right, it is quite scary, but I guess he hasn't got forever. But a bit more on Pakistan now. Now that they've lost this series 4-1, they haven't won a bilateral T20 international series since they beat the West Indies at home in 2021. And with all the chaos that's going in the background in the boardroom, as there always is, there's been miscommunications and rejections of NOC certificates, meaning that Mohammad Haris had to get someone else to pay for his flight back and all sort of nonsense. The chairman or the interim chairman has resigned and they've got another one, or God knows what's happening. Honestly, I have no idea. But can Pakistan get their ship back afloat, or is it a team that's going to be sinking very, very fast?
I feel like we always have this discussion on this podcast.
Yeah,
I mean, look, it's a complete enigma, really. I mean, Pakistan have got so much talent and strength in depth, really. I mean, despite you could call them like one of the poorer countries in cricket, they have quite a healthy first class system and a very, I'd say, quite a good infrastructure to bring these players through, and they just never seem to be able to kind of get the team selection right, or whatever it may be. Obviously there's always politics involved, especially in Pakistani cricket, but at the end of the day it's impossible to tell. Pakistan have had incredible talent since they started in international cricket, and a lot of the time it just never seems to really come to the fore, and these players almost seem wasted.
Agreed. Just to put it in context, New Zealand, who beat them, have a population in their entire country of around 5 million people, 6 million people, and
more
Pakistan,
sheep than people, actually.
exactly.
I believe.
And Pakistan, their biggest city, Karachi, has a population of around 20 million people. Just to put that in perspective. So it just goes to show that a very good system, which New Zealand clearly have, New Zealand don't often have. When you look at a New Zealand side, there's only really a handful of players that you look at them and think, yeah, they are top quality, upper echelon of natural talent and ability at the international level. The rest are often very good cricketers that the New Zealand system has trained and coached to become quality players who perform consistently for their country. And it just goes to show what such a system can do compared to, obviously, in Pakistan, where there's almost an abundance of good players, but they never or very rarely come to anything consistent because of all the chaos and whatever nonsense goes on in the background. But that's enough on Pakistan for now, at least. I'm sure we'll hear of them once again next week, as we always seem to do. We'll move on to their geographical neighbours, India and Afghanistan. One of them has actually done quite well in T20s recently. India, unsurprisingly, whitewashed Afghanistan 3-0 at home. But the best game of the series was saved for the finale, as India batted first. And Rohit Sharma was batting after he'd already got 2 ducks in a row and was 0 from 8 after a leg bye was given for one that he edged for 4 down the leg side. So I know a 0 is a duck, 2 ducks is a pair, 4 ducks is an Audi, and 5 is an Olympic rings, or the Olympic rings. I don't know what 3 ducks are, but luckily I didn't have to find out much longer because Rohit Sharma just went and smashed 121 not out from 69 balls, and Rinku Singh made 69 not out from 39. The 190 run stand, including 58 from the last 2 overs, rescued India from 22 for 4 to make 212 for 4 after 20. Firstly, I want to ask you, why was a certain part of the Indian fan base calling for Rohit to be dropped after his 2 ducks? And secondly, who's going to be India's top 6 at the World Cup, excluding some crazy last-minute selection because of some good IPL form?
I think that's just the classic kind of Indian media building stuff up for what it seems, when really Rohit Sharma is probably one of the best white ball players there's ever been.
Yeah,
I can't seem to make sense of why they could possibly ever think of dropping him.
I think
Especially if he's go on.
sorry, just before you go on, I think one reason there could be certain doubts is because he is obviously being one of the best white ball players around, but he's not the fastest hitter, fastest strike rate in that team, especially in his first part of the first 10 deliveries. He's not someone like Jaiswal or Ishan Kishan, who just try to come out and whack it straight from the off. But clearly he showed at the World Cup that he can change the way he bats to help the team better. So I really don't know why they don't think that Rohit Sharma won't do what's best for the team, as he proved in the 2023 World Cup. Even in the final, when the rest of his side probably batted a bit slower, he still put the team first. And honestly, he could have scored scarily. He could have scored another 200 runs in that tournament, but he decided that he wanted to set the platform and make sure that everyone else batted fast like he did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't quite understand the point of scoring fast in 10 balls if you can score 121 and 69. I think that kind of says it all in terms of striking quickly. And I don't want to spend too much time on Rohit, because I think Rinku Singh deserves a mention. I mean, his international stats, I know he's only played 11 or 15 games now, 11 innings. Yeah, but I mean, 356 runs at an average of 89, strike rate of 176 is pretty good numbers.
That's nuts.
He's 26. You're kind of thinking, why is he not being kind of given a go beforehand? You look at his first class average as well. Average of 44 games, average of 57 and a half. 700s, 2050s. List A just averages a shade under 50. I think he's going to be a mainstay in this India team, and for the foreseeable future anyway. And I think it already feels like he's going to start to go under the radar, with the likes of Shubman Gill kind of taking the forefront of and being the kind of poster boy of Indian cricket for the next 10 or so years.
I think that's often how it works, especially in India, where there's so many good young players. Someone like a 22-year-old Shubman Gill just like catches the eye a bit more than a 26-year-old Rinku Singh. But on that, with all the good players in that Indian lineup, tell me, who do you think are going to be the top 6 at the World Cup? Because so far I've got one opener we're going to assume is going to be Jaiswal and Rohit. And then they're going to have, I can't imagine they're going to drop Kohli. There'll be Kohli at 3, Surya Kumar Yadav at 4, Rinku at 5. You'd assume Hardik Pandya at 6, right?
Yeah, I was just leaving out Shubman.
I don't think there's a space for him in the side there. I think it's between Shubman Gill and Jaiswal for the other opening spot, right?
Yeah.
Assuming Rohit opens, and then if Rinku Singh's at 5, Hardik at 6, and Jadeja at 7, and then the bowlers, who's keeping? I don't get it. Where's KL Rahul? Where do we fit in what? There's so many good white ball Indian batsmen. What do we do?
Indian cricket have been in a little bit, I wouldn't call it necessarily a mess, but there's certainly been a bit of a unwrestle there in terms of who's going to keep, since obviously Rishabh Pant's car crash. But it does raise the question, who is going to keep.
Good problem. Good problem.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's a pretty good option to have. They're not going to drop Kohli. They're not going to drop Rohit. I think, I didn't actually realise. I just checked quickly. Shubman only, I think he averages 25 in T20 international cricket. So I think it's probably.
What's he striking at?
Just let me have a quick look.
Because if you think about it, that top 5 is pretty much set. If Hardik is fit, he plays at 6, and then Jadeja at 7. So really, the only slot there is the other opener, which is Gill or Jaiswal. But then that leaves them with no keeper. So where do India fit it? Could they fit in someone like Rahul to keep, or maybe Ishan Kishan takes the gloves and opens? I'm not sure. It seems like there's 5 spots that are nailed down there, and then the sixth is between like 4 or 5 players. Which any of them, if you pick, you'll be like, yeah, fair enough. But someone's got to take the gloves, right? They can't just make Sky keep.
Oh, you wouldn't think so. I've certainly seen weirder things, but I mean, look, yeah, it is a headache, but like you said, it's a good problem to have. Whether you even bring Rahul in to open even instead of like a Jaiswal. Yeah, I mean, it does seem like they could potentially have some problems in that department, but look, at the end of the day, I'm sure they'll
Yeah,
figure it out.
it's not something that we'll be worrying about. So
No,
they can sort it out.
exactly. And
All
at the
right.
end of the day, I think there's going to be quite a lot of scrutiny on India having not won, an ICC event in so long.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
I think if the BCCI get this, well, not necessarily the BCCI, but kind of the India selection panel get this wrong, I could see some quite upset Indian fans coming.
Which is understandable because
Yeah,
with the amount of talent and basically they're pretty much the best cricket team in the world for a good while. Surely they'll win something soon. But that wasn't even the whole game, or not even close to being the whole game. Because let's move on to the second part of the game. There's a lot of parts to come, trust me. Despite Rohit Sharma getting his now record 5th T20 International 100, Afghanistan miraculously tied the match with 50s up top from Rahmanullah Gurbaz and Ibrahim Zadran, as well as the almost finishing 50 from Gulbuddin Naib, the big man. This obviously meant that there was a super over at Bangalore because the game was tied, which is notoriously a high scoring ground. But Afghanistan batted first in the super over and made 16, but controversially, 3 runs came off the final ball as a bye to the keeper was thrown in to the non-striker's end and it flicked off Mohammad Nabi's pads, which obviously he didn't know because he was facing away. But he knew the ball hit his pads and it rolls out to long on where Afghanistan choose to take the extra 2 runs. And there's like Virat Kohli with the ball like under his foot going, what's going on? But in the end, they managed to get the 16. Rohit comes out to bat. India 15 with 1 ball left. They need 2 runs to win. And Rohit Sharma's at the non-striker's end. Now, considering what happened in the first over of that super over, Rohit Sharma just goes, you know what? If we have to run 2 here, there's probably someone quicker in the sheds. So he calls out Rinku Singh and Rohit Sharma walks off retired out. Not retired hurt, retired out. This is important for later. He retires out. But it doesn't matter because Jaiswal gets a juicy ball in the slot, gets the toe end of it, completely fluffs it. India run 1 and this super over is tied. So they go to another second super over. Now, obviously, there's no such thing as a boundary count anymore because apparently it says here that there was a random game at Lords in July 2019. I can't remember honestly what happened that game, but anyways, they changed the rule after that game. But India go out to bat first in the second super over. Rohit comes out to bat again. Now, this shouldn't have happened because the ICC playing conditions say that if you get out in one of the super overs, you can't bat in any preceding super overs. So maybe the umpires just got that wrong or whatever, but Rohit shouldn't have been there. But it didn't matter. I mean, it did matter because you got 10 runs. He hit a 6 and a 4, and India made 11. But obviously, Afghanistan come out to bat. Ravi Bishnoi bowls like fast, leggy, toppies, and gets 2 wickets from his first 3 balls. India win the super over. So I just want to ask you, why do you think the umpires let him come out? Do you think they just didn't notice, or did they judge it as maybe retired hurt, or did they not realize that the law even existed? Because let's be honest, how often are you going to read to that part of the handbook or the rule book about the second and third super overs?
I think they just wanted to see Rohit Sharma bat.
I don't blame him.
But I mean, look, it's definitely. I can certainly see why any Afghanistan fans or even the players could be upset about it. It's
I don't think they
obviously I
need
know
to.
I no, but I mean, well, after the game, anyways, I think
Yeah.
in the moment, I think there's so many laws in the game. It's impossible to remember all of them.
Mhm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
it's impossible to tell. You can't say that India wouldn't have gone on to win that game had they sent out someone other
Mm.
than Rohit Sharma.
But put it this way: if it wasn't basically meaningless dead rubber at the end of a bilateral T20 series, you'd probably be hearing a lot more about it. And lastly, on this India series, watching Ravi Bishnoi bowl, and I basically realized I'm the same as him. So, like, when is my IPL contract coming? Because me and Ravi Bishnoi are basically the same, apart from he has more control, more speed, more ability, and more variation.
Well, I mean, look, I certainly think it's knocking around the corner if you're going to start facing the likes of John Turner in the summer.
No, no,
Give
I
him a
think
bit, give him a bit of a whack, and you never know. The IPL contract could be
yeah. I
right
just
in your
got
lap.
my
But
apart from Bishnoi, yeah, I think the only thing similar me and Bishnoi have is that we bowl very flat and straight. But apart from that, he's pretty much better than me in every department. But we'll move
I
on
think I
from
think I reckon you should let go of the top elbow if you want that IPL contract.
yeah. I've
My
never had a high
no.
up anyways. Yeah, we'll move on from one current global star to possibly some of the future. And no, I'm not talking about myself. The Under-19 World Cup kicked off on Friday, and it started with an absolute banger. And I'm not talking about Ireland versus USA. That ended pretty tamely. I'm talking about South Africa versus West Indies. So South Africa bat first, and they kind of struggle their way to around 200 for about 5 or 6 down. And then I think the number 7 or number 8 whacks it everywhere, and then South Africa managed to get 286. So the West Indies they come out to bat, obviously chasing 286, and find themselves 73 for 5 at the end of the power play, which is weird because they've been going quite fast, but clearly also losing wickets. And those wickets came mostly courtesy of a lightning fast opening spell from left arm pacer Kwena Mapaka. Did I say that right? Kwena Mapaka?
Yeah, yeah, spot
Pretty
on.
good. Yeah, he's also pretty good. He's got a lethal in-swinging Yorker, and his bumper caught one of the boys out unnoticed. So the West Indies are, pretty much struggling and basically falling out of the game until they managed to crawl back into it, thanks to basically a quite simply outstanding 130 from 96 balls from 17-year-old Jewel Edward. But Mapaka, he came back at the end and cleaned up 2 wickets to the tail and sealed the win for South Africa. He ended up getting figures of 5 for 38. So, Lucas, tell me, how impressed were you by Edward and Mapaka?
I'll start off with, is it Edward?
Yeah, Jewel Edward.
Yeah. Yeah. Look,
Or Andrew, I think. Sorry. I think it's
As
Andrew.
Andrew. I thought it was yeah.
Yeah, it's
I've got
Andrew.
Andrew down.
My mistake. It's Jewel Andrew. Little
Yeah.
wicket keeper.
Yeah. He's younger than me, which is a little bit
Yeah.
scary. But look, I think in that circumstances, obviously I know they were going at a decent rate, but being 5 down at the end of the power play is never a good sign.
Bang with the
And
tail, essentially.
exactly, fantastic, fantastic innings for someone so young. Um, it seemed like the game was just drifting a little bit into the West Indies' favour. I didn't actually watch a lot of the game, but I did catch the end, and it kind of felt until those last 2 wickets were taken, because of the previous partnerships in that innings, you never, or from a South African perspective, then it never ever felt safe until they eventually got over the line.
Mapaka's already played a bit for South Africa A, so he's definitely watch out for. And Jewel Edward, I think some List A games playing for the Leeward Islands under the captaincy of Alzari Joseph, so they're two to watch out for. But there were also some other standout performances, including 100 from Shahzeb Khan and a fourfer for Ubaid Shah. Yes, that is the younger brother of Naseem Shah. As Pakistan thrashed Afghanistan, something which isn't exactly new to the Shah family. But elsewhere, Kiwi batsman Snehith Reddy, he made 147 out during a win against Nepal. So those are some good players and some to watch out for. Are there any others that you've seen over the tournament that you think we should be watching closely?
I mean, I think it's been covered quite extensively on Dibbly Dobblers, but a big fan of, or Seb Morgan certainly looks like he's got a bright future. I was quite impressed with him in that, especially in the opening spell in the Scotland game. I think he was a little bit unlucky in his comeback spell. Obviously, he got the wicket, kind of strangled down leg, but looked comfortably a yard quicker than the rest of the England attack, and certainly seems like a bright prospect for the future of English cricket.
Yeah, I know about that, standing 22 yards away from him, but we'll move on. We'll move on to someone who's a bit older.
Luckily, I was batting with him, not facing him.
Yeah, good strike rate, huh? Yeah, but anyways, moving on to someone who's a lot bigger than him and a lot older. The Big Bash, I don't know what it's called, but essentially the second semi-final to decide who plays in the final after the Sixers already beat. I think it was, who did the Sixers beat? They beat the Scorchers.
The Strikers beat the Strikers beat the Sixers. There we go. Scorchers. Yeah. We got there eventually. Big man up top for Brisbane Heat, Josh Brown. He made 140 from 57 balls. I think he hit like 12 sixes. And shockingly, just like Will Jacks last week, he gave away a double ton because I think it was like 140 after like 12 overs or something crazy like that. The Brisbane Heat have stormed into the final against the Sydney Sixers, which will take place tomorrow night at the home ground of the Sixers, the SCG. So, Lucas, do you want to tell us a bit about the interesting background of Josh Brown? Yeah, I mean, look, he's 30 years of age, and he's kind of been brought into this Brisbane Heat team in the last couple of seasons, and he just loves to bash it. Really, there's nothing more to it. He's actually quite a promising club cricketer, if you can even call him that. He loves to give the ball a good whack, and obviously had fantastic success in doing so. But certainly one of those players, if he comes off, he's devastating. I mean, 140 or 57 after having a pretty tame tournament.
Basically doing nothing.
I think he scored about 180 in the other 10 games, or how many of those games he played.
Yeah.
And he almost scored those in the knockout. But yeah, fantastic innings. It was just a little bit mesmerising to watch. I mean, he was mishitting the ball. I think about half of his sixes were just kind of mishit, and they still went 15 rows back. He's just a big, strong lad, and gives the ball a bit of a whack.
It just goes to show how strong grade cricket is in Australia. To have someone like Josh Brown, who is essentially a very, very good club cricketer who could whack it miles. I think he has his own bat company where he makes his own bats, and I think he does refurbs or makes some for his teammates now at the Brisbane Heat. But he's essentially a very good club cricketer who could whack it very far. So they gave him a shot at Brisbane Heat. Comes into the Big Bash, takes apart some of the best bowlers in the world with ease, and it just goes to show that the Brisbane Heat were right in keeping his faith after averaging 15 all season, and just come out and basically got them into a final on his own. So I guess there's no better way to promote your back company than smacking 140 or 57 in a semi-final. So I guess that's what Arjun's got to do, huh?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be seeing Arjun. Well, hopefully he repeats that for William Perkin this year. But
I've seen videos of him. Yeah, I've seen those videos of you and him.
He's looking good.
So
yeah, he's looking good as always.
Move on. Finally, I wasn't going to include this, but basically, just about a few hours ago, pull out Twitter and I see some team. By some team, I mean the Par Royals, which includes Phil Salt, Will Jacks. Who's the other one at 4?
Ooh.
Can't remember.
What is this? You said what? Pretoria Capitals? Is it? Yes. Salt Jacks.
Yeah, that's it. Pretoria Capitals have been bowled out for 52 by the Sunrisers Eastern Cape. I didn't actually see it, but what on earth happened, Lucas?
I mean, I was looking forward to going home and watching some SA20, and by the time I jumped on the train, it was already over. I think Rashid's the other the last
Okay.
one in that, or the other English player in that team.
Mhm.
It's quite an odd sort of game. You don't really see that a great deal in any sort of cricket, especially not the T20. With some of the names that you have in that team, like you mentioned, the likes of Salt, Jacks, Riley Rousseau, Ingram. That's a pretty solid top six. I think I'll have to catch up on the highlights for sure. I mean,
Yeah, there's not going to be much of it.
no, no, it's going to be
Yeah.
wicket after wicket after wicket.
It gives off
But
vibe
no,
of Brisbane. I think it was the Sydney Thunder got bowled out for like 15 or
oh
something
yeah,
last.
that was
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Well, that's all we've got time for today. We'll catch you all next week. Hopefully, we've got some reviewing on the Australia West Indies second test, some more T20 cricket, assuming stuff happens as there always is, and hopefully, I'm sure you'll be watching, but this will be on the other channel. The India versus England Test series begins on Wednesday in Hyderabad, I think. Yeah, that's it. But anyway, that's all for now. I'll see the rest of you later. See you later, Lucas. Bye bye.
Take care. Cheers, mate.